Hello. Um, it's going to be a bit of a strange stream today because I'm going to be sewing, but I can't really show you what I'm doing. This is because, well, the disadvantage is I need to sew 2 inches from my nose, and well, it's very hard to photograph 2 inch from your nose. Um, I have done one of the strips. And in fact, let me see if I can. I haven't really set up for showing you, but let me show you where I'm at and what we're doing. So let me kind of see where I'm at with that. It's a bit wonky. You'll have to put up with the wonky angle. Oh, actually, that looks pretty terrible. What the hell's going wrong there? Hang on, let me bring this up. Why does it look really different? I guess because I haven't pulled it forward. Hang on. That's better. Right, so it's of a bit of an angle. Let me straighten this up a bit. There you go. So this is where I've got to. As I said, it's a bit of an angle, but those are the original three. Then there was the next one, and here is the one that I sewed on over the weekend. Or sewed on over yesterday. It's looking a little bit wonky at a funny angle. You can see kind of the join here, but it's not horrendous. I don't quite know why. It seemed to twist a bit. But if I, for example, hold it up, you'll see closer up, it's basically invisible. So it's kind of weird. But this is what I'm doing. And today I'm going to try, while talking to you, sewing this bit on the end. That's the plan of the day. So as I say, you're not really going to be able to watch me do it because there's no way I can sit close enough and have you watch it without you either getting a really good close-up of my boobs or just no view at all. So we're going to go with no view at all, and you're going to have to live with my face. While I try and sew piece A to piece B. And as I say, easier said than done. Sorry, I'm listening to someone and I might have to go and explain something. Yeah, as we said, getting going is not the easiest. So yes, it's going to be down to you guys to generate some conversation, really, because sewing is a fairly intensive brain cell thing. It's not hard, and that is something I do want to stress. It's just a case of it's also easy to screw it up. And I can't really, as I said, demonstrate what I'm doing. So you should have to believe me that this is what I'm doing. It's either that, or you stare at an empty lace pillow for a while I do this, so you might as well just have my name, my face, to be honest. And like everything, I'm kind of, I won't say in the zone, because that's definitely not the right word for it, but I'm in the swing for sure. And I do kind of need to write down what I'm doing, because, you know, it's going to take a while before I've got strips to sew together. And do I wait till the end, or do I do it as I go? Because, to be honest, sewing 2 meters of this, a meter of this at a time, will not be a quick thing to do. So, it is, so you just have to believe that I'm doing what I say I'm doing. I've done like an inch. I mean, it's not fast, but compared to making lace, it's fast. I mean, the problem is because you're holding, in effect, 2 layers of something with the weight of smoke, so they don't tend to hold still, and trying to poke a pin, needle, whatever, through the right place, and you know, do all the right things is not that easily sorted, is the short answer, because the thread catches on, much like thread likes catching on pins. Thread likes catching full stop, right? It has this wonderful joy of wanting to catch on anything and everything within its, you know, within a short period or a vicinity of itself. And it does mean that you end up with this kind of, it's hard to, it just feels hard to sort out and keep it lying flat. Got an itch now. Ah. For some reason, it doesn't always sit right. So yes, it's possibly not the most interesting stream, but I am doing my bit to be here as much as I can, and answer questions. And who knows? Maybe when we get to the end of this, we'll do something else. Not quite sure what, because we do need to do some Bucks Point tests. To be honest, so that's potentially a thing. That was possibly not how I meant it to be. Let's undo that. managed to do a couple of inches without having to undo a bit, so, you know, it's an improvement. The problem is because the little bobbles on the edge, once free into the world, they tend to screw up and disappear into a big pile of nothing. Let me move the mic a little bit so I can lean forward. And as a result of doing so, you can end up poking string where you didn't mean to. Now, this should be, you come down from there. It's one of those things is that you think your brain's kind of in it, you're in it, and then your brain thinks and goes, hang on, maybe I'm not. And your brain kind of farts and makes you question that you actually are doing the right thing. And yet you're sure you're doing the right thing because, well, you're pretty sure you're doing the right thing. But then maybe not. I will say that my pricking mat, not my pricking mat, my pinning mat, so that when I wash it I've got something to attach it to, has arrived. So I've got a mat where I can, my blocking mat, that's the word I'm after. It is designed for knitting stroke crochet, but it'll do. So it's a 3x3 12-inch, so I've got 9 12-inch blocks with a grid on it so that you can get straight edges and the like. And my plan will be to sew everything, put the tape on the top and the bottom, and potentially a thin layer of ribbon, I thought, maybe down the sides, because the tape will be a bit thick otherwise, and it will look a little bit weird. But the tape will help, a bit of ribbon would help give it a bit of, give me something to have a neat edge on it. So, but I haven't decided yet, in part because obviously I am considering whether I make a lace edge to it or whether I do a you know, sew on a thin bit of ribbon or something, because, you know, it does need to have a solid edge. It can't have these bibbles at the edges, and these got bibbles, that's fine because this is a test piece, but you don't really want, you know, the final piece to have a weak edge. You want it to have fairly strong edges so that it doesn't screw up, if you know what I mean. And of course it will help with the blocking because you've got something to tape or pin to that is supposed to be straight. So even if the inside is a little bit wonky, for want of a better word, in the sense of, you know, you've sewed on the lace, sorry, the ribbon down the side or something, and you've had to stretch it a bit and move it a bit to make it fit. Well, that's going to help it settle down on a pin board, blocking board, because you have a rectangle filled with lace to work with, and the lace can kind of even itself out in the middle, a bit like you do with knitting. You know, you pin the edges, but the middle kind of works itself out. You don't normally have to pin the inside as well, which is tempting to do with the lace work, because obviously I am making strips, so you'd expect to, in part, to potentially you could pin each strip to make sure that, you know, one wasn't taking all of the hassle. And I'm not doing too bad. I've done about 3 inches already, so from this point of view we're doing okay. It's one of those things, is that it always seems to look a bit wrong and twisted, and yeah, I know I'm doing the same as I was, so and I think that's kind of the hard part, is believing that you're not making a mistake. Just clarifying something in a chat. Why does that look funny? No, it's because my brain's seeing it funny. As I said, sometimes your brain just kind of goes, I'm going to make you question everything you did. Getting really close to the bottom now. Then I have to go back up the other way, so please do not understand that I am done. I do feel like I'm sitting and talking to myself. I probably am. But we are nearly halfway through sewing it, and I will show you. Nearly there, the halfway mark. Very, very close now. In fact, I think the next hole is the last hole. So, let me poke this hole. There's a hole in it somewhere, there it is. Right. So, let me lie this down. There you go. Done half. Put my glasses back on. So, not that I think many of you are there, but we can donk. So there you go. It is technically sewn on now. So that is the width of my window pane, and I can, well, confirm my suspicions. And so I am kind of pleased with it. I truly am. I'm quite happy with how it's turned out. There's a fair bit of lace there after all. And the various joins, some of which did survive the wash, because these 4 got washed, hence these 2 look browner, because, well, they need a wash. I think that's one of the things that I hadn't taken into account really well enough, because I wash my hands before stream. Okay, I do not, go through a hermetic bath, shall we call it, I do not scrub myself with scrubbing brushes, like they do in those kind of, in like films where they're washing off nuclear waste, We are not violating myself just to, scrub off every atom that will come off. But at the same time, I do, I wash, it's a thing. I'm not, I have these facilities and I do make use of them. But when you look at how brown that looks compared to that. Now, I mean, obviously, I'm probably far more aware of it than you. But, I mean, for example, if I turn the light off, does it show up more? It does a little. But you can really see there is a difference between... It still doesn't show it up well, because here it's quite dark now. But this is distinctly browner than this, which is, well, considerably whiter. And so, and I think it's more noticeable if you kind of... I mean, obviously, the truth will always be told. But if it doesn't show up as well. But basically... This one is definitely browner than this one. This one's greyer, I think. But they're not white. And to me, they're distinctly not as white. And as I said, this one's browner. This one definitely has a more brown look to it. This one has got a whiter look in reality. But at the same time, is not 100%. But as I said, I do have... it's alright, little one, you don't have to panic. I'm only reaching up and grabbing. I have a whole set of blocking mats. And the idea is that once you've washed it... Sorry, I'm being careful because there is the pin attached. And I know you can't really see white on white, so bite me. But, the idea will be is that once washed, bear in mind obviously there would be more than one, you can pin the corner and then make sure that it's straight, and that you set it out so that the edges are straight, and you pin it all so that it's all nice and even. And actually that does highlight the brownness a bit better, because you can see here they look more ivory than brown, but these disappear. These not so much, growl, grr. So yes, we have fun ahead of us. Oh, the wordage. Oh, the rudeness. So I have plans. I really do have plans. Well, go and bite it then. Wretched animal. Rory, go bite it. And it comes with a bunch of pins. So it comes with the obligatory tip thing of T-pins. Of course it's sellotape down, hang on. Ouch, just stabbed myself with it. With the scissors. Thank you for that, Rory. There we go. Pulled off the thing. So, for those who don't know, T-pins are somewhat exactly like they sound, in that they have a big T-piece on the top to make them easy to pull out later, but they're far too fat and not really sharp enough to be, and too fat for that, but they are quite good for blocking. So it came with 150 of those, so that's a good thing. Put those back in the little pocket, and it comes in a little, I got one that was slightly more expensive because it came in a fancy little baguette thing to hold them all and keep them tidy, which I thought, frankly, you know, I've just managed to chuck it off where I was putting it. Hang on. I'm sorry, did I throw it at you? I didn't mean to. No. So it is, oops, I need to turn the light off. I should turn the light on as well. There we go. Right. There we go. So yes, so all I've got to do now is work back down the other side, which sounds so simple, but I can assure you it's harder than it sounds. Anyway, now I'm taking my glasses off before I picked up the needle. There we go. So I need to sort out the little tails that come at the bottom. Make swapping sides, because that's kind of what I'm doing, difficult. And so let me get back to just talking. Because technically you need to go the other way, which is part of the Oh, for goodness sake. How can you bother spamming when there's no one watching it? Come on. Waste of your effort and you come to die. Comes to something when your only viewer is a spam bot. Right. Spam bot is already dead. As I said, you wasted your life on a stream with no people in it. Alright. It's also annoying that Thread does what Thread does best, which is twist up and turn into a big knot of useless annoying. Because of course now I've got all the floaty ends where my I don't dislike sewing, but I just seem to have this amazing knack of creating knots and twisting and things, and it really doesn't help make the thing go better, because it catches on everything and it gets stuck. And yesterday I had to join a new bit of thread to the old one because it was getting too short, and I used my normal knot, and the more it pulled through, the more, and eventually it broke, and I was like, don't be needing to see that, don't need to see it falling apart, because obviously, you know, I'm doing all these knots to join it all together, and well, if it falls apart, it's kind of defeating the point. Admittedly, it did go through, you know, quite a lot of extra wear than perhaps it would do normally, and I've got the itches because of course the ends are tickling my fingers, so it's making them itch. Getting there. Got about 3 inches to go. At least the advantage on the way back is that it is held together. All I'm doing is securing it and balancing it up a bit. Because the single joint side kind of turned a bit straight when I washed it. Caused it to flatten out a bit. Having both sides done, A, stops the large loop on one side issue, but also, as you pull it to kind of straighten it all out post-wash, it kind of, because there's two sides pulling on it, it keeps it nice and even. The only downside is that it becomes more bold where the join is in the middle, which again the Bucks point idea would work. However, oh my god, Netkisser, I love you. I just thought I'd let you know that. I've been sitting here for nearly an hour or whatever it is. I don't know, I haven't got my glasses on, can't see the screen. Talking to myself. So I very much appreciate your existence and you joining me. Now, in case you're wondering why you're staring at my face, and I'm talking about not having my glasses on, this is because I am sewing up the last strip that I made onto the thing, and I would lovingly do it on camera, except all you really would get a view of is down my boob and all the top of my head. So the choice is not exactly the most appealing thought. Now I'm sure there's something for everybody, especially the boobage. It's not like I haven't got enough. Some people would dearly love that, but this is not that kind of stream after all. And so I am sitting here and I've got about 1.5 inches to go, and I will be done. Once I'm done, I don't know quite what to do next, to be honest. I think the short answer is to try and pull up and set in motion the voting. Now, some of this looks really twisted. It is one of these things is that I've noticed this, is that sometimes it seems to twist, and it's not twisted, it's just how it's lying within itself. So as I go round, if you think of the W shape that it is, bear in mind it's meeting a W shape of the other side. I start at, say, the bottom right left hand corner. I work up and I do a twist round that bar that works up. I then and that takes me to the top. So where the two tops of the W kind of, well, like the M shape forms almost, because, you know, it's a W but it's got tops kind of thing. Where that joins, where that peak in the W joins the other one, I go round there to kind of secure it in the middle. So I make a loop around that. And then I come down and go back through the bottom of the last leg of the W, which of course is the first leg of the next one. But sometimes when you do your kind of bit and you're going up and down, if the thread doesn't lie quite right, it looks really twisted, and it's not. It's just kind of lying awkwardly upon itself because it's twisted a bit amongst itself, for want of a better explanation. And it does make it look bulkier and crappier than it truly is. And I'm getting there. I only have a few more peaks to go. 1, 2, possibly 4. Does feel like one leg of the W gets way more wraps than the other. But I think in actuality it doesn't. It's just because you're changing directions. So it becomes a little like when I was doing the cloth stitch areas, where you have more on one side than you do on the other. But the truth of the matter is technically it works out the same. It's just that one, you work the line and then discard, and others you discard and work the line. And depending on which end you add, that matters more, because you add it at the beginning or the end, and if you add it at the beginning, well, then it's going to have more as it travels over to the next one. And I can feel oh no, it's my head on the microphone. Something was itching my head, and I'm trying to concentrate, which is not a good plan. I feel like I've missed. I feel like I've got to go back a little bit. Hang on. I feel somehow I've gone down too far, but that doesn't make sense, because you go down and up and down and up. So let's go back up there. Unpicking it is also not easy to find the thread of choice. There it is. Yeah, I think I went down and then down again. I don't think I fundamentally failed my... Which is not too bad, because I've only had to undo a couple of little bits. So that's... Yeah, I must have gone down too far somewhere. Don't know quite how I achieved that, but somehow I did. So that's that. As I said, we've only got, I think, one more bump to go. So, and then we are done. And I don't know quite what to do next. So, just checking that I've not missed a bit, but yeah, this should be. Oh, this better be right because I'm tying it in a knot. Well, I'm sewing it in a knot. Same difference. Right. Glasses. And scissors. There they are. Right. So as I say, I do realise that has not been the most exciting hour and 11 minutes of your lives. But you got to join me on, as always, the necessary evil part. And here we go. There we go. Now it is properly joined. So, as I said, these two still look really brown to me compared to the others. But then they haven't been washed, and I will not be washing them pre-vote because I'm not spending hours pinning them out again, because that was somewhat alarmist. Ooh, that's right, I've just spotted something on the floor. The dog did the dog thing, and if there'd been Vaseline, there would have been another Vaseline incident today, but there wasn't Vaseline, so instead they destroyed the empty tub of cheese that I'd just eaten for a snack, my box of bits with all my bobbins and tools in, and they found the dog ball. This one. And stuff. But what they did do, rather tragically, was knock off a pot of needles. Oh, I thought I picked them all up, but I just spotted two on the floor. So there we go. Pick those up so they won't end up in the dog. But yes, we will have to work out. What I will do is I need to take a good picture of this, which is easier said than done due to its size and length, or at least take a good picture of each of the motifs and an overall picture, because there are going to be a number of things that I need you to vote on. So the plan will be, as I say, I think taking an overall picture, because it gives you an idea of the width of the project, obviously not the length of the project, It is one of those things is that, like everything, so let's pick the busiest thing that draws my eye. Thank you for the follow, John. So let's pick, say, you know, one of these spiders. This spider is quite busy. Now, as a spider, it doesn't look that bad. But if you imagine every single one of these spots, it's always good to see you. But if you think of, say, this, if I put them this regular, and you're going to have, bear in mind, for sanity reasons, let me get you. Bear in mind, these are going to be 1 metre long, and this is 16 centimetres. So if you've got one every 3 centimetres, that's like 33 of these things. 7 of them wide, that's quite a few, right? Now, this already looks quite busy. Now, it doesn't look wrong. I mean, if this was a curtain, it would look a bit weird because it's not symmetrical or it's not even. It's not, you know, because there is a thing here. It just doesn't show up very well. But if you get my drift in that, if you pick this, which looks the most deformed thing on here, right? If this was every single one of them, it would be a bit much. And this is why we decided very quickly that tallies were not a thing, right? Because they would take too long, and even if it did look nice, I probably wouldn't think so, right? So with a lot of these things, it is not that there is... I don't hate any of them. There's a couple that they didn't work out quite like I wanted. So and obviously quite a few repetitions. So this one is 3 of one, 2 of another. These are all variations on a theme of that one, but some of them I think are worthy of a vote, some are not, but that's the same as that. So, you know, so is that. So some of them, you know, it's not like each one of these is absolutely unique. Get on to the last 3. Each of these is unique, and we need to pick out that which we feel is good and that which we don't. Now, we do know that Liz does not overly like the rose ground ends of these, but they could look, if I do this style border rather than this style, you know, it will be more acceptable to me, because I don't like the way it makes it look like there's a line fault down the middle. But also, we need to decide whether we're doing the zigzag snakes on each panel, because this is the required number of panels. There is 7 can be made to make it wider without it looking too wrong. I will check that, but I'm pretty confident that I can do 7 to make it wider, so that you can do, I know, odd, even, odd, even, odd, even, all the way across to make a repetitive pattern, but with, say, an offset. So let's say we pick this and the Eye of Sauron. So we have these 2, right? So that this might go, we'll call that and Sauron. So that, Sauron, that, and then Sauron, that, Sauron. So we can alternate them, if you see what I mean. So that we can make a bit more of a pattern without it looking too weird. Another option is that we do, say, all 4 of these, but you start off with little ones and get to bigger ones nearer the bottom. So there are an awful lot of decisions still to be made, and I think we need to vote on the options. I know which ones I feel more drawn to, but is that because there is the lazy part of me, the simple part of me? Would I actually like it if I was faced with, you know, 700 of them or whatever it's going to turn out to be? You know, would I like it so much then? As I say, it's like a colour. A colour can be really pretty, but you wouldn't necessarily paint the inside of your house hot pink or electric blue. You might have electric blue in a cushion. You might have hot pink in an ornament, but you wouldn't necessarily paint something the size of a ballroom hot pink, or bright purple. You end up usually with mute colours for a reason, because it would be too much. And again, you wouldn't paint them black either, so it's not just a violent colour thing. It's just a case of, if it's a nice colour can be a nice colour, but not in a huge amount. And we're going to be seeing a lot of this over the next year, and I don't know how frequent to make the dots. I mean, when I first made this, I thought this was an ideal spacing. But looking at this, it looks a bit busy for, maybe 1 metre long times 6 or 7, right? But at the same time, the right kind of in-between thing. So, for example, this one, which is really supple, which, let me get a dark background. She says, wondering where her dark background cloth has gone. There's one. If I put a dark background behind it, it'll help. You'll see what I mean. You can see it stands out a little more. But if I lift it up, you can see that there is a little square. And as a result of that, because it is subtle, but also distinctly there, you could do something like this one and one of the other ones, a more open one. I know, It in the Eye of Sauron. I keep picking the Eye of Sauron. By the way, it's not my favourite. But, it is one of the most distinctive ones there, right? So between those two, you could do quite a lot, because obviously one is kind of mute, one is kind of loud, and you could do, so if you had Sauron, splodge, Sauron, splodge, Sauron, all your eyes would really be drawn to are the 3 eyes of Sauron. The other fades a lot more into the background, but it would create a shade in the reflection of a shadow. So hence, it is very much included in here, because while originally there was a particular shape there, it turned out that it just didn't work in my head. And if it didn't work in my head, I would screw it up as part of the curtain. So let's not be doing that. But there are a lot of choices. I do have, as I say, I have 2 that I like, but I don't know whether to limit it to 2. And this becomes the whole problem of all of it, right? Is it's all well and good, but kind of how many you need is varied by what you're going to do, what you actually going to do with it in the long run. So I find myself sitting there going, I need to put up a number of questions. And so, for example, if we keep all of these spiders, so the snake spiders down the side, the spiders take up a fair bit of the effort, but also add quite a lot of detail in its own right. And so what you could arguably do is have 7 strips, one with patterns, a plain one, plat one, plain one, plat one, across all the way as an option. But I also think that would make the even numbered ones, for example, the plain ones, really boring to make. So there are just so many choices. But I am really looking forward to it. I just need to be more decisive, really. And that is part of the problem, is being more decisive. So I will need your help voting. I will be putting up pictures and the like on Instagram, on Blue Sky, Threads, and obviously YouTube. I will put up something here, but there isn't really a way for you to vote unless we do it live. So voting will not directly be done here. Now, I also need to point out that if you pick all the things that I really think look really daft, bear in mind I'm the one that's going to have to live with it, I will reserve the right to totally ignore your decisions. But I am after opinions, and that is what the voting will be. Is I want your opinion as to what would make a nice neck curtain. But you can be very influential, because if you pick two things and we decide that, I know, they're going to be a lot further apart, so there'll be like one there, so that we have like 4 or 5 for the length of the thing. It is going to be one of those parts for me in that I will have a view of, well, this is what we think. And I might think, you know what, actually, you're right. I also may go, oh no. I mean, to give you an idea, my lovely company sent me a hamper because it was my 20th year anniversary. And quite a few of the things in the hamper I did not eat. Or drink, for that matter. Such as olives and coffee and charcoal crackers. No. Anyone who was an 80s child who had Shapes dog food, there were snacks, there were treats for your dog, and one of them was charcoal, because of course it's supposed to aid digestion. Now, of course, we all know that charcoals are carcinogenic. I'm not eating those. I've already had bowel cancer. I'm not giving it a head start. So they gave me, as part of the thing, these, which are fudge in double chocolate. Thankfully, though, let's just say there was only 3 of them. Thanks for that. They were horrible. The crisps weren't particularly nice. I did have some cheese crackers. Let's just say if I chewed this cardboard with some cheese dust on it, it would be about the same. It really was not. I mean, they probably paid a fortune for it, but wasn't very me. Which was a little disappointing, because, you know, 20 years is a big enough deal. And I mean, it came with a bottle of fizzy elderflower water. I don't drink that. At least it wasn't alcohol, because I don't drink that either. Not that I can't, I just don't tend to. And let's just put it this way. If it had been made out of cheese and, you know, cured meats or something, it probably would have been a really great hamper. But, oh, there was some chocolate that was salted caramel. Didn't taste the caramel. The chocolate tasted really cheap. It was really oily and well, it didn't taste the caramel. And there were like rice puffs in it. So if you think of the squares, in the centre of the square was like 2 rice puffs, and they were salty. That was the only thing I will agree to, is they were salty. I think someone forgot the caramel part of it. So basically it was cheap chocolate with puffed rice things that were salty in it. I can put away a lot of chocolate. In the days when each Christmas the chocolate bar makers would go to war to try and make the biggest chocolate bar, I ate in one sitting a kilo, yes, a whole kilo of dairy milk chocolate. Didn't even bat an eyelid. I couldn't manage this bar, and if I tell you, the bar was smaller than one of these strips. So it was probably about, this size inside the snakes, right? It was really not that big. I felt really rank after eating that. And it's not because I'm old. Because I put away Galaxy bars without thinking about it. This was just an acquired taste. Thankfully, many of the things that were a flat no for me, my neighbours would eat. So my neighbours have shared in my celebration. And you know, even they agreed. The biggest problem with a lot of these hampers, they do try to be a bit artsy-fartsy and a little bit, you know, out there with some of their products. And the problem is it's not always for the better. And, you know, you don't really get... I mean, oh, they had some rhubarb and custard sweets. I don't know whether that's just a British thing, but rhubarb and custard sweets. They're hard-boiled sweets, and they're like little lumps. And, yeah, you got about 6. They were all right. They had some biscuits, so there was some oat biscuits and some shortbread biscuits. There's about 5 or 6 of those each. And when I mean biscuits, I'm talking kind of that sort of size. We're not talking, you know, cookie. We're talking biscuit. There really wasn't that much food in the hamper. So in a way, I feel bad for the company because they probably spent far too much on that hamper. And I mean, the case is nice. It came in a lovely wicker case with like a leather strap and to hold the lid down. So it's a nice case. It's about the only thing I'm actually going to enjoy using out of the whole lot, which is slightly missing the point, I feel. But, so what do we do next? Well, the short answer is, we need to do a bit of a bucks point test, because while we pick from all of these, the final decision has to be, are these joins good enough? So, ignoring those first ones, we are talking these last 3, which are basically all the same. That's right, I need to pull the ripple out of the middle because it's bulking it up. Now, they're not perfect, but they do generally fade into the background. Now, as I've tried to explain very, very badly, let me see if I can do this with paint. Hang on. Because I am no guru. Right. So, here is my copy of paint, and you will see just how much of a guru I am not. Let me get a big brush here. Right, so, and I want a colour. Let's pick with blue. So, you end up with, hang on, let me stretch this up a bit. So you end up with like a shape like this. Like this. And you end up with the same on the other side, right? Okay. And obviously these are twisted pairs. So this blue line represents a twisted pair. And there is 2 pairs that meet here and do a bit of a cross shape. So that this pair comes off and heads down here. And this pair that was coming in is now the new edge. So the edge pairs change, right? And with the thing that I've been doing is you start here. And you go kind of, let me think. If I start here, it will make more sense. So I go under here and out. And then under and round. And it comes under this one and out. So it kind of comes out from this side like this. And then comes under and round and out and round and under. So as you can see, there is a bit more twist looking on this one than the other. And this comes out and then comes round and then comes round and out and under like that. So you then go back the other way, doing the same, which is harder when you can't just flip the thing. So you come out and round and it comes out. And then it comes over and under and round and out through there, sorry. And then up and round and over and under and round. And then up and out and then over and round and under and then over and under. Now, so as you can see, it ends up with this kind of mishmash joining them together. And obviously here, let me do a big purple circle here where we've got, because I don't know how much my mouse pointer you can see, here you end up with quite a lot of thread, because there's the 2 pairs in the blue, and then you've got the single thread of the red, which goes over twice in roughly the same spot. Now, bearing that in mind, let me select that and move it over there. In Buck's Point, we'll pick a slightly different colour for a reason. Hang on, dunk. You still end up with the same shape. So you still end up with, no, I want a brush, thank you. So you still end up with this shape. Hang on, dunk, dunk, like this. And then dunk, dunk. And I did warn you I have the artistic talent of a squashed frog. Right, so you still end up with the same shape. However, this area is different. This, instead of this being 2 pairs, this can be a single thread, which is why I wanted a different colour, not 2. And what happens here is 2 pairs come, or a pair comes and meets the 1 thread. The thread twists and comes out like this, dunk, 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 but then comes back here and forms this. So it basically almost does figure of 8s all the way down. But here, if we did something similar with the red, it would twist, go round, come down here, and then come back, twist, and come down here. Now the reason for that is the other side would come down here and twist and come down. So you make the same thing with the 2 loops, but you have you don't have quite the same bulk, because, well, that's only 1, and this twisting amongst it, because you could do more twists. So for example, normally you do cross and 2 twists, so this normally would, this one coming down here would have would be 2, right? She says trying to draw 2 and the thing's not helping. This green dotted bit is always 2, this is always 1. So while 1 comes in, there are 2 twists along this edge. So you can do a twist, an over bit, and then another twist, and you've still got this shape, because obviously there's a join here, right, where it swaps some of the stuff out. So the one that kind of goes back, well, there's also, you know, this going on here like that, like this. So this comes out, and there's obviously dotted one along here. So this one kind of does that, that one kind of does this, and this is made up of the next pair along. So if you do like a twist here round, and then comes back in, does a twist, goes round the bottom, comes back in, cut that wrong, hang on, undo that. So it comes in and then comes round, does a twist to hold them together. She says missing the gap. Twist, and then twist, and it comes around and goes twist, twist, twist. You know, you end up with and then obviously you've got the same coming the other direction. And bear in mind, trying to flip it when you do it, it's a lot easier when you can just turn things, but you want the same angle, so you have like twist, 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 right? You can see that this ends up mimicking what this would be, this kind of normal join, a lot more, which is how they did it in times of yore. So much as we have, as far as I'm concerned, a reasonably acceptable, it washes well after all. We know this because if I go back to my pillow, she says going back to the things so you can see what you see. This line here is the same for all three. So this one got washed. Where is it? This one got washed. And so although it is not perfect and it shows, it is not hugely noticeable. It depends very much on the angle. Some angles are worse than others. So if I do this, you can see that at some angles it's a lot less noticeable than others. Whereas, you know, these first two doesn't show up from where you are on my screen as well, but there's a hard line where this flattened out. And this one, which was the two ovals overlapping that we then sewed together, has just turned shit. It's decorative, and I'm not going to say in a way it's not to an extent unattractive. I mean, if you look, it forms a kind of disconnected kind of wonky line. But what you can't see and that I can is that every other point is loose, and the only way to make that tidy after washing would you'd have to pin 2 pins in each loop to force them apart and keep the spacing, and that would be painful, because if you've got, bear in mind it works out as something like 4 an inch or whatever it is, well then times 1 metre times 6 or 7 joins, the word no comes to mind. Whereas this was how it turned out of its own volition, and it's not horrible. The line does look a bit weird, but it also looks like, you know, a pin holding it so that I need some pins, hang on. I need a pin. Not that I can pin it through the leather, but a pin kind of holding the points to the side to make them pointy and not go flat would be a solution. So then it's 1 pin per hole. Still not overly desirable. Now, as we've seen, if we do both sides, it maintains its shape very nicely, which is these three, which is why we're confident that this is pretty acceptable. It's not perfect, but then it won't be, because as I've just tried to demonstrate, probably very unsuccessfully, the extra layers do make it stand out. But oh, of course it does. You can't have, you know, 2 threads everywhere and then 4 or 5 in a pile and not expect it to look different. Now, all of this work is 2 threads crossing, well, 4 threads crossing, so 2 coming from one side, 2 coming from another, doing a dance and leaving, right? Here, of course, it's 3 threads coming in, with 2 coming from it, well, technically 3, so it's 3 threads each side by the time you've done both sides, coming in and crossing. So at the middle, instead of there being 4 threads, there's 6. So of course it looks bolder. Of course it does. There's more threads in it. It doesn't take the brain of Britain to understand that, well, it's going to look bolder the more threads you have. Otherwise, the snakes wouldn't stand out so much because, well, they wouldn't show up as much. It's, you know, because that's how it all works. So, we do have to do, I think, a test with the buck's point to try the single edge thread, because you cannot do it with this style. Because 2 pairs come in and then go out, work their way across, get to the other side, work their way across. And because that happens in this, you just can't. Whereas with with Buck's Point, because you only ever swap one pair, you can have a single thread on the edge. And so we could arguably do this and end up with a much better join. Now, the only problem with that is, well, it's also that much more delicate. And it took me an hour and a bit just to sew this section. Now, admittedly, that was both directions, so I sewed from the top to the bottom and back again. But it still took an hour. So this is not a fast hobby. This is not for people who want speed in their life. But I do think it's kind of worth it. And the fact that they look so brown really does worry me. But I am open to thoughts and opinions. And as I said, I will take some photos of each of the candidates that have worked out. Because many of these were not hugely successful. So this was a pretty much poor show. That looks pretty horrible. That's just terrible. That's the same as the others. That looks pretty horrible. That's the same as that one. That one I didn't mind quite so much, but it still doesn't look right. So to be honest, most of those are a bust. It's the choice of these and a couple of those. So we shall hopefully you will all come and vote. But basically I just need to take a picture and isolate each motif, give it a number, and as I say, take a picture of the overall and explain about the snakes, the fact that it's going to be 1/2 metre by 1 metre. So do we really want quite so many motifs? How many motifs do we actually want? Do we want to do, 2 on here, 2 different ones on here, 2 different ones on here, a middle one, and then mirror it? Do we want to do how frequently we want them, or do we want fat, small, fat, small, fat, small? There are a lot of choices to come. And I will definitely appreciate all of your help in picking, because I'm really keen to get on with it, but I don't know what to make yet. So help, basically help. In the words of Penelope Pitstop, help, help. I strongly would appreciate your thoughts on the matter. But I think for today, this is kind of where we're at. We have choices. Some of them have a mistake or 2 in them, so let's not be pretending that they're perfect. But I do, as I say, I feel drawn to a couple. But at the same time, as I said, just because I like them doesn't mean I'll like a whole curtain's worth of them. It really, really doesn't. I will say I am drawn to ones that don't have a huge amount of cloth stitching. And in part because the cloth stitch is very heavy use on the old bobbin, whereas the more open ones are lighter in use and are more likely to end up with an equally distributed amount of bobbin use. So it should make predicting the amount of string to wind on a bobbin easier. I won't say easy, but easier. Yeah. It's gonna be a road ahead, and I'm glad you're all coming with me. So on that note, I'm going to call it a day. I know it's quite a short one today, but we have achieved today. We have attached all my strips. We have something to vote on. We have a plan, well, a bit of one anyway. Well, we have a few steps ahead plan anyway. And I shall get to photographing various motifs and saying yay or nay. And I will also go and hold it up to my window to confirm that this is, you know, the width of the pane of glass, because that's what I wanted. As I say, I can do a 7th one and then it will include the frame, and I don't have a problem with that. It's not what I wanted. I wanted it purely over the window, but it can work. I wouldn't be against it being frame to frame. So I just want it to be flat, because if you think about it, if you ripple this, so if I, you know, pull all of these up as ripples, not that it works very well, but I'm doing it one-handed, you understand, but let's say I ripple this like this, which is roughly how it goes when you do the ripples on your thing. Well, what's the point of putting a pattern on it? What is the point of spending all of those many hours putting a beautiful pattern on your net curtain when you allow it to ripple across your window? You want it flat so you can see the pattern. So hence I want, you know, this is window sized, because, well, if I'm putting this much frigging effort into it, bear in mind, as I've worked out, it's going to take about a year. Because bear in mind, it's August and we only did half of the squares. Now, admittedly, we had a big detour making this, but even so, and we did a couple of bookmarks and some other things, but realistically, it's going to be about a year making this, minimum, maybe longer, depending on how it goes. There might be a few side quests along the way after all, but it does strike me that, you know, if we're going to spend that much length of time making it, once it's completed, the last thing you want to do is hide it. I mean, unless you completely screw it up, in which case, of course, you're going to hide it. But, you know, if you make a reasonable job of it, well then you want to see it, don't you? You know, it's like a beautiful painting. There is nothing more depressing than someone who buys a really expensive, beautiful painting and then puts it in a kind of one of those kind of painting binders, you know what I mean? Almost like an A4 binder, but without the ring holes, and then seals it all up with a zip and everything, and no one can ever see it. Well, what's the point in that? People made paintings to be seen. They didn't make them to stick in a drawer or whatever. They wanted them to be seen. And this is something that, well, no one really is going to see it. Because it will be in my house on a window that no one really gets to look at. I can get to see it. And I, you know, if I put all this work in it, I want to appreciate it. Now, as I say, if I make a complete dog's ear of it, then, well, maybe we will no longer talk of it. But I'm really excited to do this. I also want to do a shawl at some point, but that will not be made out of such tiny thread, so will not be anything like as painful to make. I also have kind of a want to make something for my neighbours, but I haven't kind of decided entirely what that is yet. But I have some things that I want to try, some experiments I want to have, because if only I could draw. Once again, I find my crafting ability hampered by the fact that I cannot draw, as we have seen from my paint example earlier. I cannot draw at all, and as a result of not being able to draw, what I would love to be able to do is draw something, a shape such as a tree, or with an animal sleeping at the bottom, or a deer or something, standing underneath it, and have that as the picture of my net curtain, because I have the imagination. I know how to make it. I just can't draw the shapes on the thing to make it to. I know how to make it. I just can't put it on paper. And because what you do is you draw the tree, you draw, say, the stag with an antler or two, and then from a lace point of view, you can either make the tree and make the stag and then fill in the bits, or depending on what style you go for, or you get, like you do with these motifs, you get to a point and then you work you know, around with the animal being slightly different, and you know, you bring in and you throw out as you go. And so there's a whole host of ways of doing it, and I know what I would do. I just can't draw it, which is really quite sad, really. Oh, the ability to draw. But on that note, as I say, I'm going to go. I'm going to take some photos of the motifs for you. I'm going to get some of the voting put up everywhere I can. And hope that you will offer me your opinions on what you think, for they mean the world to me. I still may ignore them, but they mean the world to me to have opinions and ideas, because otherwise I will never decide. All I will end up doing is getting really worked up because I can't decide, and I can't make any more lace until I decide. So yeah, we need to do some voting, people. Join me. I will put up notices everywhere I can of how and where to vote. I am tempted to put voting up on my website. I've got a website, not about lace making, but I've got a website that I could put it on and get you voting in terms of which ones you want. Because then you can all vote in one place. It would make my life a lot easier if I do that. So I may just very much do that. And then post the links everywhere I can. So look out for voting. It will not be a 2-minute job to set it up. However, I would appreciate your thoughts. See you again tomorrow, and I have no idea what we're doing tomorrow either. Probably starting the Bucks Point thing would be a good plan. Because it's not like that's a 1-minute job either. I don't really want to make them full-size strips, but maybe we will, just for a giggle, and do something interesting with the other edge, because we can. Anyway, I shall see you tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.